So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, welcome, whatever the time of day it is, wherever you are in the world. We are here today to talk about the inner critic. Now, I've been posting some stuff during the week, so the first part of this will be a bit of a recap. But before I start, I think I want to start actually with voices in your head are normal. Yeah. The inner dialogue that goes on inside our heads is actually how we help ourselves to make sense of things, to problem solve. Yeah. My grandfather, so I've just got to turn the volume down on my phone because it's echoing. There we go. My grandfather always used to say, of course I speak to of course I speak to myself. Sometimes I need expert advice. When we think about things, these thoughts can be helpful and productive, but there are kind of four places where the voices in our heads come from that are not helpful and are not productive. I would normally start this list with the inner critic, but obviously because we're talking about that today, I'm not going to repeat myself 1,000 times, so I'm going to leave that one till last. So first one, echoes from and the teachings of our upbringing. Yeah, that's the first place that these voices come from our family, from our teachers, from our community, yeah, from next door neighbors. I don't even remember where I heard it, but at some point in my childhood, I remember a woman saying that bearded men cannot be trusted. As I got older, I looked this up, and it's actually to do with different cultures preferring to be bearded and others not. And it was just another way of being them and us. So the fact that people have beards, men have beards, has got nothing to do with their trustworthiness. Yeah. So this is the kind of echo that I'm talking about. An opinion that you have in your head, but you don't know quite where it came from. Talking of not quite knowing where it comes from, there's sometimes that there are thoughts in your head where you literally have no idea, not only when or how or who from. Yeah. These kind of voices tend to talk about fears and worries. They stop you from doing things because it's dangerous. Those kind of voices, those kind of thought patterns, those opinions, those beliefs quite often come from unresolved trauma. But that's another big subject. Before I go into inner critic, last thing, limiting beliefs. Yeah, these are the kind of beliefs that say, I'm too old for that, or big boys don't cry, or stop your crying or oh no, that one, stop your crying or I'll give you something to cry about. That's from the family. That's the echo. Yeah. But these limiting beliefs that say that we're not to cry, that we're not to express our emotions, that once we get to a certain age, we should no longer behave in a certain way. Yeah. All of those things are these limiting beliefs. So when we're able to see the results of those limiting beliefs as being limiting, we often want to change them. And that's where there becomes this discussion in our heads between these two trains of thought. And finally, and the subject of this workshop, don't even think about it, buddy. He's a noisy boy today. We're going to talk about the inner critic. Now, we only have time for one of those, and that's why I've gone for inner critic today. But those are the voices in your head. Yeah, I couldn't possibly cover all of the voices in your head, all of the split parts of your personality, of your psyche, of your trauma history. That subject of parts work is just too big for one of these little 30-minute workshops. So I'm going to start with a little thought exercise for you. Yeah. Don't. It's being so naughty. I'm going to retell what a client told me, how her day went. Yeah. And I want you to see if you can spot the point that her inner critic jumps in. So she'd say to me, you know, my daughter would be playing quietly on the floor, and then she would zone out. She'd start scrolling on her phone, and an amount of time would go by. She would then judge herself badly. Ignore that. She would then judge herself badly for wasting time, for not achieving all that she could have achieved in the day. She would then force herself into being super mum, yeah, playing catch up. She'd be snappy with her husband. She'd end up exhausting herself in the process of trying to outperform the standard set by her inner critic. Now, can you spot where her inner critic jumped in? Yeah. Because it's not when she observes her child playing. It's not even when she starts to zone out and scroll. It's the moment when she describes herself as judging herself. Yeah. But it's her inner critic. I often talk about inner critic. And when I challenge the inner critic in particular, I will say things like, would you talk to your child like that? Would you talk to your mother like that? Would you be friends with a person who talked to you the way your inner critic talks to you? So if you're watching the recording, go grab a piece of paper, several pieces of paper, and a pen, and something to drink, because we're now going to explore and hopefully bring some understanding to that inner critic and provide you with some tools, yeah, some actual tools to get to know this inner critic and to manage it. So to start with, definition. I feel at this point we need to have an absolute definition rather than a whole bunch of williness. So I'm going to call the inner critic the internal voice that criticizes, judges, and undermines your self-worth. Yeah. This inner critic is always a mean one. Yeah. This inner critic has impact, and it has impact on your mental health, your self-esteem, your behavior, the choices you make, and in particular, comparison and judgment. Your inner critic will always compare yourself, usually unfairly, with everybody else. Yeah, that client I was just talking about, her inner critic compared her with every other mum. No, but what I'd like to encourage you to do is have a chat with that inner critic and remind that inner critic that you want to compare yourself fairly to people in the same place as you. A good example of this is when I'm coaching. Oh, Talia, I'll come back to that comment in just a second. What was I saying? So I got totally distracted. Yes, compare yourself fairly. So when I'm coaching men and women who are making new businesses, I always remind them that there's no point in comparing their business and where they are with me and where I am. There's no point in comparing their business with other people on the program. Yeah, it's not a program that I run, by the way. It's totally separate from me, but I provide mindset support. So when one client comes to me and says, oh, look at that person, they're making $10,000 a month and, you know, they only started a month before me. Yeah, that's the point. They started a month before you. They're a month ahead of you. So comparing yourself to them is unfair. Yeah. Same as a mum comparing their performance as a mother to another mother who stays at home all day and has a nanny compared to her who's working 2 jobs and in order to pay for child support. Yeah, they're in a totally different place. The thing with hi Christy, the thing with this particular variety of inner critic is the back chat. Yeah. The back chat that my inner critic used to give to me were things like, you can't say that. You can't go on a reel or post that, and that's public. No one's listening to you anyway. No one cares. Yeah. Again, if you're watching the replay for this, pause this for a second. And I want you to think about your own inner critic. Think about the voice. Think about how it sounds to you and the messages that come up over and over again. When I was first learning this, this was part of that bigger subject of parts work. And for me, my protectors, because there's parts protectors and the needs that they need to get met, my protectors were slowly, one at a time, being taken offline or being sent on holiday. Now they sit in a row on the sofa. I know, funny image, difficult to explain when, crikey, we're already 11 minutes in. Anyway, I was taught by a wonderful woman with amazing spiky hair. Love it a bit. Anyway, her inner voice, her inner critic, was part of what she referred to as the itty bitty shitty committee. Don't know if it was her invention or if she heard it from somewhere else, but this committee was there as a form of protection to stop her doing anything daft, like colouring her hair or getting another tattoo or whatever it was she was going to do. But when my itty bitty shitty committee start to pipe up, start to tell me stuff that I don't want to hear, that's not important, I tend to go, shut up. Because I'm not available for that. Now, I just want to read this comment that Talia has put in here. We were talking about a moment ago when I said, would you talk to a child like that? Would you talk to a mother like that? Would you stay friends with a person who talked to you like that? And she says, yes, that is the way I speak to my mother, since that was the way she spoke to me. I realise that feels horrible and talk to my children differently. But to be one's own friend is like trying to tickle oneself. It is, but you can. And the way you do it, right? The way you do it is you kind of have to take that step and accept a few things. Yeah. One, you're human. You are gonna mess up. You're gonna mess up. It's how we learn. Yeah. If you do nothing, then you learn nothing. Yeah? So first of all, you accept yourself. You accept all of what you've done to get to where you are now as, okay, that's my past experience. And once you're here in this moment, on this call with me, yeah, once you're purely in the moment and not judging yourself for how you got to where you are, you can separate your mind, your expansive mind, from the body that you walk around in. Yeah. And you can be, your higher self can become your body's best friend, and your body can become your best friend. So let's just take a moment. Actually, I'm going to interrupt this this workshop with a repeat of what we were doing just before the 5 o'clock start, which was rubbing our hands together. And we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 big deep breaths together. Yeah, in through the nose and out the mouth. And once your hands feel warm from rubbing them together, let's place them on your heart. Plant your feet on the floor. Stamp them a little bit so you feel that contact with the floor. Wiggle yourself in your seat. Let your shoulders drop. Feel the weight of your body on your bum or however you're sitting. And let's do these, I'm going to say 6 breaths in. Right? First breath, breathe in through your nose and hold that air behind your hands for a second, and then blow out your mouth. Now breathe into your belly, all the way down into the bottom of your pelvis. And gently out again. Now this time, as you breathe in, fill your arms with the air. Yeah? It's a mind stretch. Go with it. Breathe in. and breathe out. Now take the next breath through your body all the way down your legs to your feet. Ready? All the way in and all the way out again. And now one more deep breath in together. Hold and exhale. There you go. Perfect. Now, we had a couple of people join us. Christy, I think I said hello to Christy. I'm going to say congratulations again. She just got married. And Dawn. Nice to see you all. Now let's go on to managing your inner critic. I'm going to fire through these. If you've got questions, bang them in the live chat and I will pick them up in a mo, right? The thing with your inner critic is unless you can reframe it, unless you can turn it around and talk to it, yeah, it's going to continue to be mean to you. Yeah. And the way you can reframe is there's a number of different methods. The first one is called cognitive restructuring, right? This is where you identify and challenge the negative thoughts that the inner critic is feeding you. Yeah. When you hear that inner critic being mean, ask it things like, is this an actual fact? Or is this an assumption that my inner critic is just making to wind me up? You know, one of those, oh, I'm not going to go to the party, everybody hates me. Yeah. Is that actual fact? Or is that just an assumption that your inner critic has come up with? What evidence supports or contradicts the thought? Yeah. Look for evidence either way. And that's a really good way of balancing out the stuff that your inner critic says to you that is critical. And as you turn down the volume of the critical speaking, the volume of the positive stuff will gradually increase. And that's the next thing, positive affirmations. Now, I never used to think much of positive affirmations, to be honest with you, mainly because I could never find an affirmation that would work for me. And once I did, I realized, boom, right, I need to stop reading other people's affirmations. So I'm not going to give you any affirmations today because I want to encourage you to create affirmations that directly counteract the negative messages that you're getting from your own inner critic. Yeah. So again, if you're watching the replay, take a pause and think about the kind of things. Oh, people are joining. I love it. Think about the kind of things that your inner critic says to you, and then create affirmations that are realistic, specific, and tailored to your own particular personal goals and strengths to give your mind, that expansive mind, evidence that what the inner critic is spouting is a load of gum binge. Good word there. Another way we can do this is visualizations. I have pre-recorded. If any of you are interested, let me know and I'll see what I can dig out for you. I have several pre-recorded guided visual meditations that can allow you to imagine being in an actual face-to-face conversation with a third person embodiment of your inner critic. Yeah. The visualization would encourage you to dress that person, you know, give that person a gender, an appearance, a hair color, clothing color, all that kind of stuff. And then have a conversation with that inner critic. Talk to that inner critic about reinforcing the positive self-talk and self-compassion that you think you deserve. Yeah? Because you do deserve it. Cool, time is rushing by today. Other mindfulness techniques work quite well. Anything that challenges the inner critic's judgment. Yeah. And while you're doing it, notice the fluctuations in your own body? Does your heart rate increase? Do you suddenly feel cold when you touch on a particular subject? And get all of this stuff out of your head, because that's where your inner critic lives. And it's all of this stuff that fuels your inner critic and its tendency to be negative. So if something feels uncomfortable in your body when you think of a particular thing, like going to that party where nobody likes you, but there's no evidence of it, and your inner critic's just winding you up, take that feeling that you feel and say, okay, the thought that I'm having is false, because there are people at that party who do like me and I like them. So this feeling needs to be released from the body because it's not true. Mindful breathing, we just did some of that. Focusing your breath into different areas of your body, whether that's into your arms. You can hold your arms out, you can hold your arms up, and breathe into the space between your hands, wherever you choose to put them. Again, we do all of this in other workshops. There's so much detail to go into here. I'm trying to kind of not go too far down a rabbit hole, otherwise we won't be able to cover anything. Grounding techniques. I know what, if you're watching this live, which looks like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 people watching, type a 1 in the chat if you understand what I mean by a grounding technique. That's 1 if you understand it. Right, nobody's typing a 1. So I'm just going to say, right, a grounding technique is a way to settle your physical body. Yeah. Remember when we did those breaths earlier on, I got you to bang your feet on the floor, to be aware of the weight in the chair. Yeah. That simple mindfulness of focusing on grounding and connecting. Sometimes I would do a visualization where I get people to imagine that there's roots growing from their feet down into the ground to connect themselves to the ground. These are really good techniques to use when you're feeling overwhelmed by your inner critic. Yeah. Next, I'd like to talk about empowerment strategies, actually, because the thing with empowerment strategies is once you know how to, imagine you're going into battle with a dragon, right? Your inner critic is so big, so huge, so ugly, we're going to imagine it as a dragon. Yeah, you're going into battle with that dragon. Now, before you go into battle with that dragon, you're doing all of these grounding techniques, these breathing techniques. You're learning how to use a sword. Yeah, but actually picking it up and swinging it is another matter, right? And to do that, you need to practice self-compassion. The importance of this is that on the days when the inner critic wins, yeah, to treat yourself with kindness and understanding, yeah, with that self-compassion, especially when the inner critic is throwing self-doubt or direct criticism at you. Yeah, like, who do you think you are, having purple in your hair? You know, you're in your 50s. What's the matter with you? Yeah. Shut up. I want to encourage you to recognize that this inner critic will only become overly harsh or intrusive, yeah, to protect itself. It is a part of you. Yeah. You're never, ever, ever going to get rid of an inner critic, but you can quiet it. You can quiet it by providing it with what it needs. Yeah. And that's the last thing that I'm going to talk about, I think, in this section, is that the support. Yeah. Now, outwardly, you can look for support from friends, from family, from a therapist, from a coach. Yeah. Any kind of supportive network can support you in challenging the inner critic. But the more you challenge, the more that inner critic is going to feel like it is about, you know, that it is in danger. Yeah. So instead of going into like a conflict with this dragon, yeah, how about we put the sword down and go talk to the dragon about why it's angry, why it's aggressive, why it believes the things it believes. Because this inner critic is another version of what a lot of you will know as an inner child or as a part. Yeah, and I've talked about parts work. Because when you can create a supportive network outside of you and within you, that can give validation to that inner critic. Not that what it's saying is right, but the caution is right. Yeah? Going back to that party example again, right? When the inner critic says to you, oh, don't go to that party, nobody likes you, everybody hates you, I don't know why you're even thinking about going, you're going to look terrible in that dress anyway. Yeah. That inner critic doesn't want you to go to the party because you do actually look terrible in that dress, but it's trying to protect itself just in case someone is mean to you. So that inner critic is actually trying to protect you from hurt. But in protecting you from hurt, it's also preventing you from an enjoyable evening out in which the inner critic will experience things like you walk in the door and someone goes, so lovely to see you. Come here and give me a hug, girl. Yeah. Unless you can have that perspective that accepts and understands yourself at one end of the spectrum and your inner critic at the other. Yeah. Your self-compassion and its critical thinking can be together. Up and down, in and out, hot and cold, left and right. Yeah. It's duality. I've done a whole workshop on the subject of duality where we did briefly touch on these things. Yes, Tanya says, how is seeking external support not the same as external validation? People and healers in my area tend to shame seeking external validation. Tend to shame the seeking of external validation. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Oh, crikey, it's 28 minutes past. Right. I'm going to go over my 30 minutes. Sorry on all that, but that's why I book it in my diary for 45, because by the time I've done questions, always happens. What's going on here is external support is something that allows and supports and cares and nurtures and keeps you safe while you give yourself your own validation. Yeah. The reason why people and healers have a tendency to shame that seeking of external validation is because they somehow think that we are all star beings who are, you know, floating souls within our bodies that are just here for the human experience. They forget that in addition to all of that higher self stuff, there is us. Yeah, there is the brain made of fat and water. There is a soul and a creation and something that's bigger than the meat suit that we walk around in. Yes, but we are this meat suit too. We are this organic living creature. And a lot of healers that I've come across in my past, when I was doing these two certifications here, that's the National Federation of Spiritual Healers. They were very much about treating the energy flow around our energetic bodies without looking at the physical, without looking at the emotional. Yeah. And we're all of that, all of those things. We are not just our higher self. Yeah. Our higher selves don't need external validation, but our human bodies do to a degree, because our human bodies are designed and built and hardwired to be part of little groups, tribes. And when we ignore external validation, when we go off and do our own things, when we become too independent and too detached from our tribe, however big or however small that tribe is, there is a part of our brain, that part of our brain that doesn't know how to thrive, that doesn't know how to have a good time, that doesn't know all of the joys of self-actualization, of self-empowerment, of self-compassion, all of that stuff. Yeah, it doesn't understand self-development because all it is designed to do is keep us alive. And before I close, I'm going to give one really outrageous example of how the inner critic and that survival part of the brain gang up on us. And it's to do with this external support and external validation thing, and why it's shamed. Tanya, this meat suit, yeah, Tanya used to smoke every day, a lot. I would often have a cigarette before I'd even drink some water. I would, I think the only thing that came before smoking a cigarette was probably going for a pee. Didn't always get dressed before I had my first cigarette. And when it came time for bedtime, it would literally have to be the last thing I did, right? Last puff, put it out, go clean my teeth, go bed. So if I had a bath or something, I couldn't like have a bath and then slip under the covers and watch a movie, have a cuddle with my husband, whatever, because the last thing had to be a cigarette. And I did that for so many years, lots and lots and lots of years. I became quite good at giving up. That this part of my brain, this survival part of my brain said, right, Tanya smoked yesterday and she's alive. Therefore, smoking is keeping Tanya alive. I can hear you laughing. But then what happens is when Tanya decides that she wants to give up smoking, which everybody has told her is hard, all of these, echoes and opinions from other people, because Tanya has been told it's hard so many times, I failed over and over and over and over again until, with the aid of a really, really good book, I stopped smoking because there's nothing to give up. You can't give up poisoning yourself. You can't give up smelling like an ashtray. Yeah? Giving up is something you do for something that's nice, like giving up donuts for a month or giving up real butter. So when these people and healers in Talia's area, the way she said it is, people and healers in my area tend to shame seeking external validation. Now, we have a bit of a phrase over here, and I hope you get it. I think these people and these healers are so far up themselves that they've actually forgotten that they are walking around in organic, carbon-based life forms. And those life forms have relied on each other and still do rely on each other and the connection to each other to remain alive. They've forgotten that. And I think they're missing a trick. Because the external support and validation, when you're teaching a child something, when you're teaching a child to ride a bike, yeah? Let's look at the difference between external support and validation, right? When you're teaching a child to ride a bike, you give that child the external support that they need by steadying the bike while they get the hang of it. And when they do it, when they finally go off down the road, you don't just turn around and go back in the house, do you? No, you stand in the street and go, yeah, well done. And that associates the scary moment with praise. So next time the child takes off on their own, they have that scary moment, but it's all right because it's all right. Yeah, my honesty. Talia just said, you're like this. She just said, I appreciate your honesty. Laugh out loud, and agreed. Yeah, honesty is what you get when you follow me. Honesty is what you get when you're in my group, because even though I don't put myself above anybody, I don't allow you to put yourself above me either. Yeah, we're all equal in this. We are all human beings, being human. Yeah. And I think that's where I think I'm going to begin to wind this up, because there's 3 more things that I need to cover with you. When you are dealing with your inner critic, it's like dealing with a really nasty mother-in-law on crack. Yeah. Seriously, your inner critic can be harsher and meaner than anybody would dare be to your face. Yeah? So take some time after this call if you can. By all means, watch it through as many times as you need to. Yeah. And reflect on what you learned on this call today. Reflect on any insights that you can now share with your inner critic in order for your inner critic to just button it for 10 minutes. Yeah. My shut up. Yeah. That's how I do it. Reflect on how you want to quieten your inner critic, because your inner critic is as personal to you as your fingerprint. The second thing is I would like to express my gratitude to all of those who are watching it live. It always really lifts me, actually, to be watched live, because it gives me what Talia was saying. It gives me the external validation that what I've got to say is interesting and valuable. Yeah. Let's see, who was the first person here? Alan was the first person here, and as far as I can see, he might still be here. Actually, there's 3 people here now. So it could be Lily, Kathy, Dawn. No, it doesn't tell me who. Even if I tap the little eye picture, it doesn't tell me who it is. There's 3 people watching me. Yeah. I don't know when they started watching me. But altogether we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right. So out of 7 people, 4 of them now, right? So out of 7 people who joined the call, 4 of you are still watching. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank Talia in particular for her participation. Asking questions is a really good thing for me because it ensures that I cover everything that I need to cover. Yes, Lily. Lily says, it's your sis. Lily's my sister. Hi, Lil. How you doing, babe? But yeah, so thank you. Thank you for providing me with that little bit of external validation. That means I'll come back and do it again next week. You know what? I have no idea what I'm doing next week. Normally at this point, I say, oh, and next week we're going to be talking about... I've got no idea what we're talking about next week. No idea at all. So if you've got any suggestions, bang them into the comments right now and we'll talk about them, or message me or whatever, and I'll cover it. And the final thing I want to say is, in terms of next steps, now there are loads of resources available online if you want to go search for them. But on this particular subject, there's the book. Here it is. It's an odd book that I'm going to recommend this week. But my book recommendation for this week is Health at Any Size. It's by Linda Bacon, Dr. Linda Bacon. Yes, spelt as you would expect it. She writes about weight loss and about health, but a lot of what she says speaks directly to the inner critic that looks out through our eyes into a mirror and says, "You're too big. You're too fat. Why are you wearing that?" Yeah, yeah. Lily's favorite thing from her inner critic is overthinking and catastrophizing. I think we all know one of those. I do a workshop like this every single Thursday, unless a bomb goes off somewhere. Sorry, that was a bit flippant. I shouldn't have said that. That was wrong of me. I apologise. 9 times out of 10, I do a workshop every Thursday. There are sometimes circumstances where I'll either move it 1 hour in either direction, or I might have it on a Friday instead of a Thursday, but it's very rare. It's always in the group. So if you're watching this anywhere other than in the group, why aren't you in the group? Oh yes, and there's also that identity mini workshop that I mentioned. When you're talking to your inner critic and you're saying things like, is this true? Yeah. In that workshop, alongside the is this true chatter challenge, yeah, there's a bookmark where it just reminds you of the ways that you can slow yourself down, take yourself one step back from reacting to a situation so that you can choose how you respond. And that's called the Respond versus React bookmark. If you want any of these resources that are mine to give, just drop a comment below or send me a message. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Are there any questions? I think we've covered all of the questions. Have we covered all the questions? If you're shy, just send it to me in a private message and I'll get straight back to you. I'm pretty much going to be sat here for the next couple of hours doing some creating. And I will see you all soon. So, bye for now.